Okay, this is part two of the Ancien regime going through the three-estate system in France prior to the French Revolution. The third estate is going to be made up of everybody else, about 27, 28 million people. So it is important to note that France is quite a bit larger than England was at the time of the English Civil War. It's also going to have quite a few more people involved, tens of millions versus millions of people involved than the American Revolution that occurred just a few years prior. So makeup of that, you have the bourgeoisie, who are generally city people, about 14% of the population. You have kind of different degrees of these city people. You have the haute, the haut, the wealthy landowners, the financiers, the bankers. Then you have the petit, who are the professionals. These are your lawyers, merchants, doctors, about 2 million people. Those lawyers are going to make up a very, very important part of the French Revolution moving forward. Then we have the artisans, shopkeepers, guildsmen, city workers, about 2 million of those as well. So you can see that there. So all kinds of different jobs within those cities. Then you have the peasants. The peasants make up 85% of the society. The peasants own the majority of the land, but it's really only your highest group of peasants that own the land. And even those landowners, those large landowners, aren't necessarily rolling in the dough. They aren't necessarily like you wouldn't think of them as plantation owners in the pre-Civil War South. It's not on the same level. They pay most of their income to taxes and dues, tithes to the church, dues and rent to landlords, direct and indirect taxes. Most of the taxation, again, is coming from this group of people. Just a reminder, it is bourgeoisie, it is not bourgeoisie, so Hermione is going to give us just a quick reminder there. Monarchy. Feelings. How do the people feel about Louis XVI? Well, Louis XVI, I'm going to call him a waffler. He waffles on a lot of decisions. Where Louis XIV comes out extremely strong in favor of being an absolutist, Louis XVI hems and haws. He seems to be a real people pleaser, and that's great in and of itself, but not quite what you're looking for to guide a large European power through some of the most trying and difficult times it has ever experienced. Number one, France is now in a very tenuous alliance with Austria. This is really to try and surround Prussia, the growing Prussian Empire, and that's the only reason it really even comes about, because France and Austria were rivals really throughout the 1600s into the 1700s through the War of Spanish and Austrian successions that come in the 1700s, and then into the 7 Years' War. However, you want to try and tie these groups together. So if you're trying to create a tenuous alliance, how do you do that? You do that through marriage. Maria Therese, the woman who is appointed by her father as the next leader of the Austrian Empire. She has a daughter. Her daughter's name is Maria Antonia. Well, Maria Antonia is married and betrothed to the couple of years younger Louis XVI. Her name is restyled Marie Antoinette in order to make her sound more French-like and hopefully endear her to the French people. Spoiler alert, it's not going to happen. So the feelings of the people toward the monarchy this time are kind of forced into this very, very transparent alliance between the two nations. They're not big fans of her. It doesn't help that the two of them aren't particularly interested in each other in terms of trying to continue the French lineage moving forward. The marriage is not consummated for like 5 years, and Marie Antoinette is engaging in lavish spending and gambling and has gentleman callers requiring her attention. And because of that, people really turn on her pretty quickly. Marie Antoinette, listen, she's not innocent in all of this that goes down, but she's also probably not as guilty as history gives her credit for. Yeah, she's a lavish spender, buying a new dress every other day, that kind of thing. But the whole let them eat cake line, that never actually happens. And in private, she actually lobbies Louis XVI on behalf of the people, really of the Third Estate and the bourgeoisie. So part of that is self-serving, part of it isn't, but whatever. Again, history is very rarely black and white, it's mostly gray. In addition, you have in 1774, as I've mentioned previously, excuse me, the Controller General of France, Turgot, is trying to push through financial reforms to get France back on some decent economic footing. The problem is he's pushing these through, and we'll see this in a minute, at a very, very inopportune time. And it results in people starving, not enough bread to go around, and the people really kind of blame this on the king and on the monarchy. Essentially, if you're going to say, like Louis XIV says, I am the state, you better provide for the people of your state. And so there's this concept, they're not going to call it this yet, this is a more modern term, but a moral economy, a duty that the leaders have to the people of that nation to ensure that the economy is working for everybody and everybody's best interests. So that's going on in the 1770s, and we'll hit that a little bit further moving forward. Then you have in 1775, as a result of all this starvation, the concept of this conspiracy known as a Famine Pact. It's the belief that agents within the government, along with wealthy landowners, are conspiring to drive up the prices of bread so high that people are starving from it and people can't afford it, and this will in turn enable these people to become rich because only the rich can afford bread, and create this pseudo-aristocratic society and a return to absolutism. It is not true, but it is a belief that is spread around France during 1775, and this really turns people against the monarchy even more. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit to 1785, but this is just too good of a story to pass up. So the way that this goes, Marie Antoinette has her favorites within French aristocratic society and some who are not. There's a gentleman who is a former minister who has fallen out of favor with the queen, and he wants to get back into her good graces. He's approached by a woman who says, I'm a consort of the queen, and she wants to reopen dialogue. And the minister thinks, great, this is perfect. They start trading letters back and forth, and he actually thinks that Marie Antoinette might have a little thing for him. She doesn't. Spoiler alert. Because this woman who approaches him is, in fact, a con woman. She's working in concert with a man, and we'll see how their relationship, the names are not essentially important. What is important is the story, because there was a necklace made for one of the wives of Louis XV, but unfortunately Louis dies before that necklace is finished. So now these necklace makers have this necklace that is just dripping with diamonds. It is completely iced out, so frosty, and they can't sell it to anybody. They approach Marie Antoinette once, they go around Europe, they approach her again. She's like, nah, it's too gaudy, I'm good, I only like gold. And they cannot get rid of this thing. It is dead weight in their pockets. So word of this gets around. This con woman approaches the minister and says, hey, actually a great thing that you could do. The queen would really like this necklace, but she can't really go out and buy it for herself. The paparazzi come out, they're painting things of her, they're showing her, in these paintings. They can't do that. Will you buy it for her? And she'll give you cash in 4 different installments. You can pay for it, and from that point, you'll be able to give her the necklace and really win the queen's favor. And the minister's like, oh, this is perfect, this is great, thank you so much for this opportunity, blah, blah, blah. So he talks to the necklace people, says, okay, here's the way it's going to be laid out. We're going to have these 4 installments. Here's a little down payment of my own money to make sure that we get the ball rolling on all of this. And the necklace people are like, great, here's the necklace. He wants to give it to the queen in person. You might think, uh-oh, problem for the con woman, but not so fast. They hire a prostitute who looks like Marie Antoinette and put her in low lighting and meet her in a public place so that the minister can hand over this necklace. Interesting. So the necklace people know that Marie Antoinette has this necklace, and so does the minister, but in reality, it's in London with the con woman's co-con person, and they're hacking off the diamonds and selling them piecemeal to people. Eventually, one of the necklace people and the minister are like, Marie Antoinette, why exactly aren't you wearing that sweet necklace that you got? Are you wearing it around, just keeping it around the house, don't want to put any creases in it, that kind of thing? And Marie Antoinette's like, dudes, I told you I don't want the necklace. And all of a sudden, cue glass shattering, and people start to freak out. Well, eventually the whole plan is unraveled. But here's how this really ties into the monarchy. During the trial, the people actually come down on the side of the grifters. They come down on the side of the prostitute, on the side of the con woman and man. Hey, these are just some honest people. They're looking to make a buck. Can we really fault them for that? But Marie Antoinette, gosh, that woman spends so much money, doesn't she? So Marie Antoinette actually gets more blame from this and poor public relations from a situation she had absolutely nothing to do this. It's unbelievable. It's like one of those situations where no matter what somebody does, it just annoys you. And that's kind of where the people are at with Marie Antoinette by 1785. Getting back to Louis XVI, he is very indecisive. He goes back and forth. Do I want to be an absolutist? Do I engage in Enlightenment philosophy? Whatever it may be. He doesn't really have a firm standing on a lot of different things. And this creates a problem when you're trying to make clear decisions that are clear for everyone. In addition, Marie Antoinette is from Austria. That's predominantly a Protestant area. Calvinism, we see that play a big role. She tends to favor Protestant people within French ministry as opposed to Catholics. So you got that going on as well. Regardless of all of this, all of these ill feelings, the economy is absolutely falling apart. We've talked about this already. You can see, once again, another graph to see land ownership, population, and government taxation. Jacques Necker, here's this guy. He pops up. He's going to pop up twice, actually. He's like a Swiss banking rock star, but he's a great self-promoter. Don't get me wrong. The guy knows what he's doing. He develops good business strategies, blah, blah, blah. But he promotes himself like nobody's business. He is an Instagram influencer before there is such a thing. And in doing so, he comes to the attention. He is looked upon very, very kindly by Marie Antoinette. She's pumping him up, get him in there, get him in there. Finally, Jacques Necker ends up getting in and becomes, in part, charge of the finances. Well, he is kind of cooking the books. He's hiding some things from the French monarchy and from the French people, but then he opens the book. He issues something called the Compte Rendu, where he opens up the books, the French finances, for the first time. People actually learn to read from the Compte Rendu. This is how important and how much of a milestone this opening up of the French finances is. And in reality, France is in serious, serious trouble. They are borrowing money. Jacques Necker's name is the only thing getting them money from creditors so that they can have loans to pay off the interest rates of other loans that they already have. We have the taxes. The taille is the one that you want to pay attention to in your textbook. Make sure that you take a look through there. And then you have the crippling debt of the American Revolution, which they jumped into really strictly as a way to punch Britain in the mouth. And now they're stuck with paying for it. To give you an idea, we have that little note from the IRS as of last year, 2017, 38% of the federal income tax comes from the top 1%, 58% from the top 5%, whereas you're getting next to nothing from the top 5% in France. So we have a situation where the French third estate just can't get that bread, and they really want to make sure that they can have that bread. Bread is honestly the staple of the French diet. Prior to all of these issues happening economically, it's about 50% of the French income goes to bread. But when things really start going downhill in the 1770s, it gets 80, 85%, 90% of the money that you're actually bringing home is going towards bread. This is in part because of weather. 1650 to 1850 down here, that is known as the Little Ice Age. And you'll notice there are some dips in some different spots. Well, one of those dips hits in 1770, right when Turgot and Louis XVI are trying to push through these reforms to free the grain trade, to develop based on the physiocratic ideas, based on ideas of Adam Smith, get a little bit of that laissez-faire economics in there. That's happening at the same time. And so prices are skyrocketing. So there are actually people who can't afford to buy bread. Now, as the grain trade is free, the price is going to go sky high because of supply and demand. You have poor crops, not enough supply, prices go up. In addition, people are bringing their bread who do have it to other places to sell it at the higher price. And so now, even if you have money in certain areas, you still can't purchase the bread because the bread prices are so high. Then we get to this hot mess of organization. You have these old 38 provinces over here. These are political divisions. Cardinal Richelieu, before Louis XIV, divides them into these generalités. If you are shipping things from one generalité to another, you're paying a tax and paying a premium to get it there. Then you have judicial divisions. And so these judges are coming from different areas. And oh, by the way, none of these divisions actually match up, because down here you'll see the religious divisions. All of this is leading to chaos and confusion within France. There's no easy way to centralize everything. We'll pick it up back here with the Paris Parlement, and we'll link that to the next section of these lectures.